How do you get more candidate control? Well, you'll never have full control, so that's the first thing you have to accept in recruitment. But there are certainly a lot of things you can do to minimise the dropouts and people wasting your time, essentially. So, when you begin speaking to a candidate right from the outset, you want to approach it in a way that they feel most comfortable. And so you want to just begin by being quite open, honest, transparent, and just gathering information is a really good starting point. And as you gather information, you will start to pick up and read where this candidate is in terms of their current situation, their motivators for moving, just what's stopping them, what they love about what they do, what they don't. And it's just all about taking them through a process. And that's just a series of questions, whether that's on between 1 and sort of 5 calls, depending on their availability, how receptive they are, so how willing they are to just start sharing with you on call number 1, for example. Sometimes you have to build that up over a series of calls just to gain their trust and to establish that relationship before they'll then share and give you the in-depth detail and their sort of, just more detail on their situation, and the crucial information that you need to sort of form a profile of them, where they sit in the space, their skills, so that you can assess them against job specs, so that you can assess them against your market, against the job titles that you recruit. And all this is just a series of phone calls, or it can be video calls, it can be a combination. And how to bring, when it comes to the control, you make a decision on whether you're going to take that candidate through a process. You make a decision on whether you're going to introduce a candidate to a role and the detail of that role. And it's a two-way street. And so if you do decide to market a role to them and you walk through all the information and you ask them questions around it, you will then test commitment by arranging another follow-up call once they've had an opportunity to review the spec, for example, review the website, the organisation, and then the follow-up call will be more questions, a bit more detail around the spec. It will be revisiting a few things that you've already discussed just to make sure the information is coming through the same. It will also be a little bit of a test on whether they've actually looked at the organisation, what their opinion is, where they're at. And it's all this sort of activity, and this is part of the process in terms of you deciding, and the candidate, of course, deciding whether it's something they want to go ahead with. But all throughout this, you're testing their commitment. So are they jumping on the call that's arranged with you? Are they cancelling, for example? Are they making the time to speak to you? Are they answering all your questions? Are they following your instructions? So when you are requesting information back on an email, are you getting all the information back? Are they sending the up-to-date CV? Are they taking the time to do that? All this is obviously really good indicators on where the candidate is at in terms of commitment level to the position. When it comes to actually submitting the details, you obviously have a key process point here in terms of making sure you gain their permission to send and present and represent them. So that needs to be in writing on email anyway. So that's a good point to mention. But aside from that, when it comes to confirming interviews, you can again request a written response back, just clarifying that they're going to be attending the interview, exactly where that is, what that looks like. And then also the process that you'll put in place for interview preparation, something that can get massively overlooked in the industry. And it's so important because you're continuously keeping the candidate engaged in the process. The communication flow is consistent and regular, and the fact that you've got an interview prep session is really, really good because it can often just keep that candidate, as I say, engaged in the process and motivated, and you're offering them genuine support around the interview process, because you can help them with interview format, good techniques, and obviously depending on what the situation that candidate's in, bear in mind they might not have interviewed for quite some time, depending on their character, they might need some support, and it's important that you tailor the support that you give them to perhaps what they need. So all this sort of all forms your process with your candidate and the candidate journey. But you'll notice there's over this process, there's lots of points where you're looking for something back from the candidate. You're looking for a point of contact back, you're checking that they're coming back to you, you're asking for them for extra information, and you're just continuously keeping that communication flow, and you're asking for confirmation from them all the time, so that if any point they're flaking off or there's a reservation, you're going to spot it, rather than cutting all this out and keeping it really minimal and then not recognising that the candidate's just either engaged with something else or just genuinely not that interested. So being thorough and actually having this process in place will massively reduce your candidates ghosting and your candidates dropping away.